Welcome to Ecology. So what is ecology? Ecology is the study of interactions between living things and between living things and their non-living environments. So what do ecologists study? Take a look at the behaviors that this bird is displaying. An ecologist might wonder, why is this bird behaving this way? What is the relationship between the bird we first saw and this new bird that has this much more normal coloration? And you can see the bird is looking pretty crazy at this point. An ecologist might wonder, what is the cost of this type of ritual to the bird? Is it attracting predators? Is it practical? Can this bird hide properly? Where does it live? Where does it have its nest? An ecologist might wonder, how come the female just left? If this is a male mating ritual, why did this ritual not work? These are all questions that an ecologist might investigate. Ecologists like to organize life into various levels. These are known as levels of biological organization. We start with an organism. A group of the same type of organism form a population. Different populations come together to make a community of interacting living things. Communities come together with their non-living environment to form the ecosystem, and all of the ecosystems on Earth form the part of the Earth known as the biosphere. So we are going to take each of these one at a time. An organism is a single living thing. In this case, we have a deer. A population is many deer. So a population is a group of individuals that live in the same area, can interbreed, and share the same gene pool. So you can see a herd of deer. The interesting fact about populations is population is the level at which evolution actually occurs. Individuals cannot evolve. And we will discuss this in greater detail throughout the year. Now, different populations come together to form communities. A community is composed of all the different populations of a species that live in a given area, and these populations interact with each other. So you have your herd of deer, and you have predators like the wolves, and you have bacteria in the area, and you have fungi, and you have producers like grasses, shrubs, and trees. You have parasites like the tick that you can see on the lower right-hand side. All of these organisms together make up a dynamic community. Now the community, which includes all of these living things together with a non-living environment, forms the ecosystem. So we have the deer, we have the fungi, we have the grasses, and we add to that non-living things like sunlight, rain, snow, soil, rocks, mountains, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and together these living and non-living factors make up what is known as an ecosystem. All the ecosystems on Earth come together to form the biosphere. The biosphere is the portion of Earth in which all life exists. This includes the land, the water, and the air. So again, the levels of biological organization, we start with an organism. Organisms come together to make a population, which can interbreed. Many populations come together to make a community, and the community with its non-living environment makes the ecosystem. Finally, all the ecosystems together form the biosphere. Biotic and abiotic factors. We've covered these, we just didn't use the proper terminology. So if you remember, bio means living, and we talked about how biology is the study of life. So biotic factors are living factors, living things in the environment. A actually means not. So abiotic means not living. And abiotic factors are non-living things in the environment. In this case, you can see a fox, which would be a biotic factor, and the snow around it would be the abiotic factor. Here are other biotic factors, producers like the tree and the plants. You see some bacteria, which are decomposers, and you can see some animals as well. These are all biotic factors. Abiotic factors include things that are very important to living things in the environment. They include things like sunlight, rock formations, mountains, fresh water, salt water, waterfalls, precipitation, how much rain falls in the area. And abiotic factors also include things like oxygen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, nitrogen, and other gases in the atmosphere. All of these abiotic factors are non-living parts of the environment. Biodiversity refers to the amount and variety of species in an ecosystem. And you can see here an example of a high biodiversity area. Not only are there lots of living things in the picture, there's also huge variety. There's a lot of different living things. A low biodiversity area would be, for example, a parking lot. There are actually living things in a parking lot, right? You might have a few insects, you might have some grasses poking through cracks in the parking lot, but overall, a paved parking lot would be considered a low biodiversity area, especially when compared to something like a tropical rainforest or a coral reef. Why is biodiversity important? Biodiversity gives us insight into the health of an ecosystem. High biodiversity areas show healthy, strong ecosystems. Low biodiversity ecosystems can collapse more easily. Moreover, the loss of just one species can have devastating effects. Not only might you lose the species itself, but it could cause the whole ecosystem, the whole food web to collapse. Biodiversity is also important to the health of mankind. We are dependent on other organisms for our survival. Everything we eat, whether we're eating vegetables or meat, everything that we eat comes from living things or things that were once living. The air that we breathe is produced by plants. We use living things to construct our buildings when you're thinking about things like wood. So biodiversity is really important to our survival as a species. Keystone species. A keystone species has an unusually large effect on its ecosystem. A keystone is actually the central stone at the summit of an arch. It's the stone that holds the whole arch together. So you can see on the image here, if I was to pull out the keystone, the whole arch would collapse. A keystone species works the same way. If you remove the keystone species from the environment, the whole ecosystem could collapse. Beavers are an example of a keystone species. They build these things known as dams. And dams can actually transform rivers into ponds, wetlands, and meadows. And these transformations allow a lot of living things to exist in the area that wouldn't be able to otherwise. So by constructing dams, the beavers can cause the following. First of all, you have a greater number and variety of pond fish that can live in the area. These fish will attract fish-eating birds like the heron and the kingfisher. Insects inhabit the pond, and these insects attract different types of birds. For example, this one. Waterfowl make their nest in the shrubs and the grasses along the pond's edge. The waterfowl can actually attract predators like the fox, which are after either the chicks or their eggs. So all these living things are dependent on the beaver for their